I've been hearing from clients on what to do about rent as their revenues dwindle or dry up, and how can they handle it. I've explained to them that there are no national programs on dealing with landlords, and there are probably millions of different landlords and companies out there that lease properties. So it's essentially a one-on-one discussion or negotiation that they must have with their landlord. There are several things you can do. One is to ask for a rent deferral, which means you put off the rent today to pay it back later or over the course of the lease to catch the landlord up. From a tenant perspective, a better provision or a better negotiation would be a rent abatement. We're all in this together. We cut back rent for now, whether it's some or all of the rent for a period of time. We forgive it. I've seen some discussions where you essentially extend the lease on the back end to add some months for the months that you don't pay, but that you actually get out of paying rent. I don't see that landlords would be particularly interested in doing this, but it could also be terminate the lease. If you no longer need the space or paying for it will bring the business to bankruptcy, you can try to negotiate your way out of a lease. And I would also like to add, I also represent some landlords, and they've been coming to me with questions on how they should be negotiating with their tenants. This is not a normal business deal. So the difference is, if you and I want to make a deal on anything, buying a car, selling it, a building, you could, if you're the seller, you could decide, that's not enough money for it. Thanks very much. I'll keep it on the market. I could decide that's too much to pay. Let's walk away from the deal. These are parties that are already in a lease. They already have legally binding obligations between them. They have to work with each other to do what's right now under the circumstances, notwithstanding that they have this legally binding agreement between them. Because quite frankly, the world has changed. I rarely advise someone to take a very hard position with a tenant that is genuinely in distress, economic distress. If someone's trying to take advantage of you versus a genuine dilemma. Landlords are business people. They will try, I believe, to work out a scenario that could be beneficial to both, because it's more important to preserve the relationship for the long term and keep a tenant, even if you have to make some concessions. So it's very unique to every circumstance. The landlord's got parameters on how much they can do and how much they could put off. But if you make absolutely no concessions to a tenant that is crashing and burning, collecting no rent is not a good option either. The important reason for discussing with your attorney, either first or having your attorney involved in this process, is that you need some sense of scale of what's reasonable to ask for under the circumstances. Tenants have to understand that landlords will typically have mortgage obligations. They have lenders that have loaned them money for the buildings that they're leasing out. So there's pressure on the landlord side to retain revenue. However, from the tenant side, my basic comment is, I know what happens if you don't ask. So you have to ask the question about whether or not the landlord's willing to open up a dialogue under the circumstances. And since everybody's in this one together, I think most landlords are willing to do what they can do, or at least try to do what they can do under the circumstance, because everyone's in this together. It's not something you should try at home. Every negotiation is different and nuanced. You need someone that will know what the pressures are on each side of the transaction and have some understanding of what the other side's issues are. And you want someone that's somewhat detached and doing it professionally and dispassionately, yet with compassion.